The life and legacy of Princess Diana have enthralled people all around the world for decades. She was the people's princess because of her kindness, dignity, and unmistakable rapport with the populace. Beneath the glitzy exterior, however, was a mother who loved her kids dearly. After years of concealment, a long-lost letter from Diana has now surfaced. Has at last been revealed to her oldest son, Prince William. She wanted him to know what? Come along as we unearth the secrets and startling contents of Princess Diana's misplaced letter to Prince William. Diana's private correspondence. In July 2004, it started out inconspicuously in a London auction house's catalog. It was just a list of handwritten letters from the late Princess Diana, with no dramatic headlines or big revelations. However, these weren't merely any correspondence. They provided a unique and unvarnished glimpse into her personal life and were extremely intimate. One letter in particular caught my attention right away among the pile. It described Prince William, her oldest son, in a way that made clear how much she loved him. Diana's private letters to Violet Collison, a lady who had been more than a servant, were up for auction at SS. For many years, she was the Spencer family's confidant. Violet had seen how Diana had changed from a timid little girl became the world's most renowned woman, and that trip was represented in these letters. These letters were candid and intimate, in contrast to official palace materials, which were frequently meticulously selected and refined. They chronicled Diana's life's emotional roller coaster, her battles with royal expectations, the devastation of getting ready for a wedding that millions of people would be watching, and most importantly, the highs and lows of parenthood. One such endearing letter, written on July 8, 1981, just a few weeks prior to her nuptials with Prince. A young bride trapped in a frenzy of last-minute preparations is depicted in Charles's painting. Nevertheless, Diana's tone was lighthearted and humorous despite the chaos all around her. The bride is maintaining her composure, while everyone else is rushing around fixing last-minute issues. This brief comment alluded to the friendliness and relatability that contributed to her widespread popularity. However, her letters became more somber as the years went by. A young princess's unfettered enthusiasm gave way to more profound feelings, annoyance, worry, and most importantly, an unwavering commitment to her two sons. Not only were Diana's writings remarkable, but so were the feelings that underpinned them. They showed a mother who was always considering the future, happiness, and well-being of her children. Even though the world had already seen Diana through dramatic interviews, movies, and images, these handwritten messages provided a unique perspective. They were not intended for public use, consumption. They were private, intimate, and quiet, demonstrating her deep desire for her sons to develop compassion and kindness as they grew up, qualities that were frequently hard to maintain inside the palace. This was encapsulated in a very poignant letter dated June 21st, 1989, thanking Sergeant George Plum of the Special Escort Group for arranging a motorbike display for Prince William's 7th birthday. The letter was sent on official Kensington Palace material. Diana's appreciation was clear. "I can't even tell you how much joy the show brought to all those kids and their moms," she wrote, adding, "It was so nice of you and your team to come here today for William's birthday." To those who followed Diana's life, these letters were even more special because they weren't just Diana's signature. Beside her name were the small, eager scribbles of William and Harry. It was a rare glimpse into a simple, happy family moment, far removed from the constant media scrutiny. More than sentimental artifacts, they sparked conversations about Diana's complex relationship with the royal family and her unwavering resolve to raise her sons in a different way. Diana broke with the tradition of royal children being raised in a strict, formal manner with little direct parental involvement, wanting William and Harry to have a childhood that felt authentic and full of experiences that regular kids had. According to her former royal bodyguard, Ken Worf, Diana made a conscious effort to, not as a publicity stunt, but because she truly wanted her sons to understand life outside of royalty. She took them to amusement parks, allowed them to eat at fast food restaurants, and even took them on public buses. But was Princess Diana the mother who ensured that her sons never lost touch with reality? Let's take a closer look. Diana's protection for her children. Princess Diana was not just a royal figure. She was a devoted mother who wanted her sons to understand life outside the palace gates. Diana made it a point to take her sons, William and Harry, on outings where they could interact with people from all walks of life, so they wouldn't grow up in a bubble of privilege. However, she was also fiercely protective of them, understanding the constant pressure from the media, and she worked with palace officials to arrange for them to have experiences outside of the palace, because she felt that even though they were royals, they should know what life was like for regular kids. In order to protect her children from the constant scrutiny that came with being a royal, she requested privacy in exchange for official photo sessions that allowed the public to see important moments in their lives, like their first day of school or family vacations. It was a delicate balancing act, allowing the press just enough access to satiate public curiosity while preserving her son's right to a normal childhood. Andrew Morton, in his book Diana, her true story, revealed how deeply she struggled with the media's. Her letters about William were not just casual updates. They were heartfelt glimpses into a mother's love, a record of her dedication to preparing him for the future, while also shielding him from its harshest realities. By the time these letters resurfaced at an auction in 2004, William had grown from a boy to a young man at university, continuing the lessons his mother had taught him. She had lived under its harsh glare and knew the toll it could take, especially on a child. Instilled in him, the letters, which were full of maternal pride and wisdom, gave a deeper understanding of his character and demonstrated how Diana's influence shaped him at a time when the monarchy was still adjusting to the changes she had sparked and the world was still grieving her death. And William's increasing public prominence led many to view him as Diana's emotional heir. However, these letters were more than just historical artifacts. They serve as a poignant reminder that Diana's legacy endured. The rediscovered letters allowed people to feel Diana's presence again, and they revealed her deep love for William. Diana never got to see her sons grow into adulthood, never got to see them start their own families, and never got to support causes she would have been proud of. However, through these handwritten notes, her voice lived on, not in carefully crafted speeches or formal appearances, but in her own words, filled with warmth and sincerity. What started out as an auction became something far more meaningful. Diana's legacy as a mother was not limited to letters and photos. It encompassed the decisions she made on a daily basis, some of which were daring, some of which were subdued defiances of royal customs. But at the core of it all was one straightforward fact. William and Harry were just two young boys with an extraordinary mother before they became well-known worldwide. And Diana recognized that their privilege came with a great deal of pressure, so she was determined to give them more from the start. Diana's parenting style on June 21st, 1982. Princess Diana became a mother for the first time when she gave birth to Prince William. At the age of 20, her transition into motherhood was immediate and profoundly transformative. It wasn't just a role she accepted. It was a mission she embraced with her whole heart. Did her children's upbringing reflect character, compassion, and a connection to the world beyond the palace gates? Let's find out. Diana defied royal convention by breastfeeding William, something that had been virtually unheard of in a royal family for generations, and even choosing his name herself rather than letting the palace choose it. More significantly, Diana resisted the notion that royal nannies should handle the majority of the parenting. Diana didn't want to be a distant figure in her children's lives. She wanted to be present in every way possible, to be a hands-on mother, not just a figurehead. Her devotion was further demonstrated when Prince Charles had to leave for Australia a few weeks after William was born. Normally, royal children would be left in the care of staff, but Diana refused to leave her newborn son and brought him with her, making it clear that being there for her child came before any royal obligation. As William grew, Diana continued to defy expectations by not hiring private tutors to teach him inside the palace. Instead, Diana's efforts to provide her children with a normal life continued when she enrolled him in a local nursery school near Kensington Palace, as had been done for previous royal children. Parents and onlookers were frequently astounded to see a princess personally drop off and pick up her son, something nearly unprecedented in royal history. As a quiet revolution in royal parenting, Diana made sure William and his younger brother Harry experienced the world beyond the palace walls. Their childhood was full of ordinary moments that any child would treasure, not just lavish feasts and royal engagements. She took them to McDonald's, not because she was a big fan of fast food, but because she wanted them to experience what other kids did, to the London Underground, let them go to theme parks, and surrounded them by people who didn't bow or speak to them in a formal manner. These outings weren't just random. They were meticulously planned. Diana wanted her boys to learn about the world outside of their royal bubble and to see life from all angles. According to her former protection officer, Ken Worf, she carefully planned these outings, picking the most peaceful times and reducing security, and occasionally she even wore subtle disguises to blend in with crowd. Diana wasn't just giving her boys a childhood. She was teaching them empathy, a lesson that would influence them for years to come. Her desire to inculcate compassion became even more evident when she introduced her sons to her charitable work. In one particularly memorable instance, Diana took William to Centrepoint, a charity that helps young homeless people in London, where he encountered kids and teenagers who had grown up without families, without education, and without a place to call home. For Diana, this wasn't just about introducing William to other people's hardships. It was also about ensuring that he understood the responsibility that came with his high status. How close was Diana to her children? Let's find out. Diana's marriage to Prince Charles was in disarray by the early 1990s, and the world watched as their relationship broke down. However, amidst the chaos of royal life, constant media speculation, personal heartbreak, and palace politics, Diana's love, her defiance of outdated traditions, and her unwavering commitment to her children. Diana didn't just change the way royal parenting was done, she redefined it entirely. Her sons, William and Harry, were her stable ground, and she devoted more of her energy to raising them than ever before, determined to protect them from the chaos around her. Diana made thoughtful parenting decisions that would influence her boys for years to come, carefully choosing schools that value both privacy and emotional health, such as Wetherby School and Ludgrove, which are renowned for their nurturing environments. However, she didn't simply send them off and hope for the best. She worked closely with school, staff to make sure that William and Harry could feel normal, at least in the classroom. The challenge of co-parenting in the constant spotlight began when Charles and Diana formally separated in 1992, but Diana continued to be very involved in her son's everyday life. She cheered him on at sporting events, went to school functions, and personally wrote thank you notes to staff, small gestures that spoke volumes about her unwavering dedication. Many of those handwritten notes. By 1995, when Diana sat down for her now infamous interview with journalist Martin Basher, which was viewed by over 22 million people, the world saw the undeniable cracks in the royal facade. But even in that moment, Diana's priority remained clear: her boys. She openly spoke about wanting to raise them with kindness, love, and resilience, emphasizing emotional intelligence over royal duties. Since then, the notes have resurfaced in auctions, serving as tangible reminders of a mother who never allowed royal duties to overshadow her role as a parent. Her former butler, Paul Burrell, said Diana was devastated, feeling as though she was being pushed out, her voice unheard. But even as the palace walls closed in, she found solace in her sons, William and Harry becoming her anchor, the unwavering force that kept her grounded. It was a rare and powerful moment, a princess putting humanity above tradition. Shortly after the interview, Queen Elizabeth II urged Diana to finalize her divorce, a sign that the royal family had reached its breaking point. Through the storm, Diana lost her title Her Royal Highness after her divorce was finalized on August 28, 1996, a formality that deeply hurt her for far more personal reasons than political ones. Without the title, royal protocol dictated that she would eventually have to curtsy to her own sons. William's response to her revelation was straightforward but profound. "Don't worry, Mommy," the 14-year-old reportedly reassured her. "When I'm king one day, I'll return to you." Although William has never personally verified the story, it demonstrates their intense love and respect for one another. After her royal responsibilities ended, Diana turned her attention back to the causes she was passionate about, such as HIV awareness, homelessness, and the effort to outlaw landmines. She no longer represented the monarchy, but rather her own principles, and she continued to write sincere letters to friends, staff, and supporters, with one theme running through almost all of them: her boys. Diana had come to terms with the fact that she couldn't control the future, but she could shape it, and through her love, her choices, and her words, she left her sons with something the institution could never fully provide: empathy, courage, and the strength to be their own men. She wrote about Harry's boundless energy, William's kindness, and her hopes for their futures. She worried about the pressure they would face and hoped they would grow up with integrity and independence. Diana and Charles' separation. The official announcement of Princess Diana and Prince Charles' separation in 1992 marked a turning point in Diana's life, and the atmosphere inside Kensington Palace changed drastically. It was not about royal duty or tradition, but about showing up, listening, and loving in a way that was real and unwavering. She tucked them in at night, wrote them letters, and spoke the truth, even when it was difficult. At the time, William was only 10 years old, and Harry was only 8, so their need for stability was even greater. Diana took charge of their daily lives, staying deeply involved in their schooling routines and weekend plans. As the public watched the royal marriage fall apart, Diana started to open up about her personal struggles. If anything, her duties as a mother to William and Harry remained her top priority. The most shocking moment occurred on June 29, 1994, when Charles confessed being unfaithful on national television. Less than a year later, on November 20th, 1995, Diana responded in her own unique way in a 38-minute BBC Panorama interview, in which she candidly discussed the difficulties of royal life, her battles with mental health, and her intense loneliness. However, what most moved the public was her sincere talk about her children, in which she expressed her wish for. Her words resonated deeply, reaching over 22 million viewers in the UK alone. Diana's candid revelations had far-reaching consequences within the royal family. The response was swift and decisive. Queen Elizabeth II, after consulting with key advisors, including the Prime Minister and the Archbishop of Canterbury, sent letters to both Diana and William and Harry, urging them to grow up with emotional intelligence in addition to formal royal training. Charles, urging them to move forward with a formal divorce. Diana was devastated by this decision. According to royal insiders, including biographers Tina Brown and Sally Bedell Smith, her former butler, Paul Burrell, later disclosed that she had hoped for more time and space, rather than a total separation from royal life. However, the process proceeded, and after months of property, custody, and financial negotiations, the divorce was finalized on August 28, 1996. Changes to Diana's status. She kept her title as Princess of Wales but lost the formal styling of Her Royal Highness, which meant that, technically, she would now have to curtsy to her former husband, her sons, and other senior royals. Diana felt that this was a final rejection, a door that was permanently closed. Paul Burrell described an especially poignant moment when Diana confided in her oldest son, William, the 14-year-old prince, after seeing. "Don't worry, Mommy," he reportedly said to ease his mother's anguish. One of the most moving examples of Diana and William's close relationship is this exchange, which has never been formally confirmed by the palace. After Diana left her royal duties, she embarked on a new chapter of her life that was more characterized by her personal values than by royal protocol. She left behind more than 100 patronages, opting instead to focus on a few causes that were very important to her, such as the leprosy mission, the National AIDS Trust, the Royal Marsden Hospital, Centrepoint, and Great Ormond Street Hospital. Although she was no longer a working royal, her commitment to humanitarian causes only grew stronger. Diana's 2 sons were her top priority, and she made sure to plan her life around their school schedules, attend parent-teacher conferences, and be actively involved in their upbringing. In personal letters and notes, some of which were later made public by Paul Burrell, Diana expressed concern for her safety, saying in one terrifying letter dated October 1995, "This particular phase of my life is the most dangerous." She was described as an involved and loving mother who was always reachable by school staff and close friends, but this time in her life was also characterized by a growing sense of isolation. Without royal security and the formal support system she once had, she frequently felt vulnerable and exposed. Although the letter's authenticity has been confirmed, its contents are still very controversial, whether or not her fears were legitimate. They depicted a woman who felt deeply uneasy and constantly watched, but Diana never wavered in her commitment to making a difference. In January 1997, she traveled to Angola with the International Red Cross to campaign against landmines. Pictures of her walking. During her final months, Diana remained committed to preparing William and Harry for the future, wanting them to understand leadership not as a position of power, but as an opportunity to serve others. Photos taken in protective gear through a recently cleared minefield became some of the most powerful and enduring images of her later life, a testament to her bravery and her belief in using her platform to bring attention to global issues. Close friends and advisors have described how she instilled in William a compassion-based sense of duty. She frequently told him, when talking about her humanitarian work, "Use your position to help those who have no voice." Unfortunately, that future was never realized. Diana's life ended in a devastating car crash in Paris on August 31st, 1997, and the world watched in shock as William, then 15 years old, and Harry, then 12 years old, walked behind her coffin, their faces etched with grief. Despite her absence, Diana's influence on her sons was still evident. Remember to like and subscribe, and tell us what you think about the startling revelation from Princess Diana's letter to her son, Prince William, in the comments area.